And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our presenter. And our presenter today will be Miss Lena Davis, who is a lecturer in the School of Business Administration, SOBO, here at UTech. All right, so Miss Davis has been employed at the University of Technology, Jamaica for over 20 years, where she has served both in administrative and academic roles. She served in the academic roles for Office of the Registrar and Faculty of Engineering Computing, and academic roles for Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, FELS, and College of Business and Management, COBAM. Currently, Ms. Davis is a full-time lecturer in the College of Business and Management, where she lectures in the areas of business and management. Some of the modules she has taught to date: she has facilitated the following modules: Introduction to Human Resource Management, Performance Management, Strategic Staffing, Organizational Development, Industrial Relations and Law, Personal Career Development, and the Community Service Program, which we all know as CSP. Ms. Davis currently holds a BBA in Human Resource Management and a minor in International Business from UTech Jamaica. She has a Master's of Science in Human Resource Management from Florida International University. She also has a postgraduate diploma in Education and Training from VTDI. And she's also a member of the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica, HRMAJ. Her research interests include employee wellness and well-being, performance management, blended learning, and adult learning. In terms of service, voluntary service, Ms. Davis is currently a member of the Career and Placement Advisory Committee here at UTech, and is also a committee member of the Continuing Education Committee, which is in the School of Business Administration, SOBO. So without further ado, I now present Ms. Lena Davis, our presenter, and she'll be talking to us on the topic of interviewing skills, or otherwise known as ACE the interview. Ms. Davis, the platform is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Francis. I hope everyone is hearing me. Can you hear me and see me, participants?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so we have quite a few persons online. We have quite a few: Abigail Cook, Alexandra Stevens, Angelica Anne-Marie Malcolm, Avalie Hamilton, Bethany Craig, and the list goes on. So I'll be calling on your names: Deborah Foreman, and the list goes on and on and on. So I'll be calling on some of you throughout the presentation. All right, so let's get started. So you would have heard the introduction, and we are going to go right into the presentation. I'm trying to share my screen, Mr. I'm not sure. Are you seeing my screen now? Is everyone seeing the screen? Not sure what's happening.
Not yet, miss.
Are you seeing it now?
It's loading.
It's slowly loading, it seems.
Oh.
Can't see it now, miss.
Okay, what are you seeing exactly?
The introduction
It's the interview, February 11, 2021.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to know if you are seeing. Okay, so welcome again, everyone. And thank you for joining this session. The Career and Placement Unit, they have been facilitating a number of presentation, a series of presentation. And this has been ongoing for a number of years, each semester. The team lead, Mr. Cahoon, and his able assistant, Mr. Francis, and the other team members there, they are doing an excellent job in sharing valuable information to the student population for you to be prepared for the world of work. I am not sure if all the participants today, if you have been participating for the other series of presentations before today? Can you raise your hand or indicate if you have been following all the presentations? All right, so 2 participants, 5, okay. All right, so I'm aware a number of topics would have passed. I know presentations about dress for success would have passed. Can any of the participants share what they have covered so far? You can open your mic, you have that permission.
How to write an effective resume, cover letter, how to dress for an interview, how to act in an interview.
Okay, so how to dress in an interview, etc. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else want to share?
I also learned that the necessary clothes that you need to wear that is appropriate in dressing that would make you look appropriate for an interview, like no sleeveless, limit the
Okay,
amount of jewelry that you
sorry,
wear.
one moment. Somebody's mic is open and the sound is coming through. Can you please, all right, go ahead. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, please. Please complete what you're saying.
Yes, it was my mic that was open.
Okay, okay, all right.
Sorry about that. I was saying that based on the previous meeting, I learned that there are certain way that you should dress or bring yourself to the interview, because certain clothes will allow you to look appropriate and ready to get the job. You should limit the amount of accessories that you wear, and no sleeveless and so forth. The hairstyle, those are the things which is important.
Okay, thank you so much. So I just want you to appreciate that all the topics you have covered so far, they are relevant. We are going somewhere with this. So I'm not sure what you were taught when you did the resume and letter writing. I'm not sure who was a presenter, but whatever you did there, you were really preparing for an event. You were preparing for a day. When you wrote your resume and cover letter, ultimately, what is it you were expecting? What do you think was the purpose? So I'm just doing a little before I get into the presentation. I just want to get an understanding, see if we are on the same page. What was your understanding when you wrote your cover letter and your resume? What were your expectations when you submitted those documents?
Yourself.
We're preparing for an interview.
So you were preparing for an interview. Let me hear from someone else.
Yourself as well.
Pardon?
Also to sell yourself.
Okay. To sell yourself. Anyone else?
I'm preparing to get my new job.
Pardon?
I'm preparing to get my new job.
Preparing to get your new job. But somebody said it clearly. So you're preparing for the job, but in order to get to the job, you are required to do an interview. Now, so let me just get right into it while we continue. So today, the topic is the interview. So we are going to be looking at the employment interview in a little while. And today, our objective today really is to, let me see if I'm navigating properly. By the end of this session, we want you should be able to have clarity about what is an interview, assess the main types of interview questions, evaluate the interview process, and also we're going to be doing a little demonstration before we wrap up this session, okay? Now, before we go any further, I'm going to be asking you a question. Let me see the hands of those who really love or enjoy going on an interview. It is something that you look forward to. You really like it. So I've seen one hand so far. What about the others? Mr. Stephen Gentle, can you say what is it that you like about the interview?
Well, it's just, you know, you're embarking on.
I'm not hearing you so well. You are embarking on? Wow. I'm not sure if we have lost him. Anyone else? Anyone else who would have raised your hand? Mr. Stephen? Go ahead, Mr. Stephen Gentles. All right, and it seems like he's having some challenges, but we'll move along. So I was just asking earlier, what is it that you like? Some person said they really like going on an interview. And what is it that you like about going on an interview? I didn't get much response for that question. Can anybody indicate why you like going on an interview? Why do you like it?
Because I know I'm ready for the job. Carlissa.
Okay, Carlissa.
If I apply, that means I am ready for the job.
So
I don't
Carlissa
have
is
a
saying
problem
that
with
she's
the
ready for
interview
the
once
job.
I know that's my job.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So an interview can be very, very intimidating for some persons. They will tell you that. And is there anyone who believes that the interview can be somewhat intimidating? The entire interview process?
Yes.
And if yes, why?
Yes.
Yes, miss.
Miss,
I had to plug in a
because
new mic.
sometimes
Sorry, one at a time, please. Go ahead, Odin.
I was gonna say like yes, because they put a lot of pressure on you as the some persons do put a lot of pressure on you as the person looking to get the job, the interview. So yeah, it can be pretty scary, I guess.
Can be pretty scary. Okay. And why do you say that? What is the factor that caused you to be scared? What are the factors?
Well, internally the anxiety, and then the external pressure that they put on me as the interviewee. So yeah, those
Okay.
are the things that I think.
So pressure, or then Ibert, anyone else? What are some of the issues? What are some of the things?
And also, Miss, the unknown. One of the major things for me as it relates to interviews, I would be so prepared, but it's just the anxiety. What is going to happen? Am I going to get any surprises? So the unknown is always something that makes me dread interviews.
Okay. All right. Is Brittany Lewis saying something? Brittany Jade Lewis, are you saying something, Miss Lewis?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Now, interviews can be intimidating, and perhaps if we did a survey, it would be surprising to see what the responses would be, because an interview can be intimidating. Somebody spoke about the unknown. Somebody spoke about just being fearful. Okay, you're not sure who will be sitting across the table. You are not sure of the questions that you may be asked. So there are a number of reasons for this. So before we continue any further, I'm going to be asking a quick question. What is your understanding of an interview, employment interview? What is it? What is an interview?
I miss me again. Sorry about that. My mic was out. I had to plug in the USB one.
Okay.
Yeah, the interview process is like getting to know one another. The employer getting to know the potential employee before any concrete decision is made based on the impression on both sides. So it's like a getting to know session before.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else? What is your understanding of an employment or a job interview, as we call it? What is it? Some of us have been on several interviews. Yes, DaCosta?
Basically, a pre-conversation before you the job or your position to see what you like, see who got the job.
Okay. All right. So let's see what we have here. Thank you so much. So what it is really a formal meeting during which you and the prospective employer, you are in a position to ask questions and to exchange information. And the ultimate goal of the job applicant is to ace the interview to get the job, while on the side of the employer, they are seeking to select the best candidate who shows up for the interview. I will hasten to say with respect to interviews that the employee, during the employee life cycle, employees are exposed to at least 3 main types of interviews. You have the employment interview, you have the performance appraisal interview, and you have the exit interview. So the employment interview takes place when you're entering the organization. The performance appraisal interview takes place when you're meeting with your supervisor to discuss your performance over a particular period, usually over a 1-year period. And the exit interview takes place when you are leaving the organization. So today our focus is on the employment interview when you are entering the organization, okay? And as I said before, what it is a formal meeting between the prospective employer and the prospective employee, where you sit to discuss questions and exchange information about the employment possibility of being employed. Okay, so we are moving a bit further. So there are several goals of the employment interview, all right? And one reason is to provide information to employers, to gather information about the employer and the job, to make decision whether you should accept the job or not. And you want to find out if you're a best fit, if this is a best fit for you, okay? Continuing. So the interview serves as 2 purposes, a dual purpose. And one is to find the best person for the job, and you're seeking to get a good match. In addition, the employer is seeking to find the best fit for the position. Now, one thing I want to point out to you quickly is that you are not desperate when you're applying for a job, or do not show or behave as if you are desperate. Yes, you want this job, but you are not desperate. So while the recruiter is trying to decide whether you are the right person for the position, the company is also deciding whether you will be right for their company. So both interests are being served at the same time, okay? So, quick question. There are some things that will take place during the entire interview cycle, and one thing before the interview begins. What are some of the things that you think should happen before the actual day of the interview? Question. Anyone?
Miss, good afternoon, Sabrina Davis. You should be knowledgeable about the business and the position that you're applying for, you're being interviewed for.
Okay.
So you should do a little bit of research.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else?
Can I repeat the question, please?
I'm asking you, before the day of the interview. So what we're looking at now, what should happen before the interview? What should the applicant do before the interview?
Research the history of the business.
Okay, who said that? Is that Shania?
Gail. Shania
Okay.
Gail.
All right.
Also,
go ahead, please.
Also, you can practice interview questions.
Practice interview questions. Okay. Anyone else?
Ensure you have the necessary documents put together, such as your resume and CV.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else before we move on? What should you do before the day of the interview? Go ahead, Odin Hibbert.
Like do the final preparations, as other person said. Basically, well, I think even before that day before, like you could have information about the business and the specific job that you are going to apply for. That should be done like probably before the penultimate day. But final preparations, making sure that your attire is fine, reviewing some possible questions that will come up in the interview and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. Very well. So yes, thanks for all the responses so far. So before the interview, it is expected that the job applicant will do some research and do some preparation. It is very important for you to do some research on the organization, find out some more about the job itself. Some organization, you will notice that they will publish the job description on their website, on their web page. So it is your responsibility to do some research on the organization, on the job, and do some preparation. And this preparation would include going over some questions, learning some more about the jobs, etc. So wonderful. We would have already said that. All right. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about two, there are many others, but I'm going to be focusing on two types of interview errors that may affect you even before I get into the day of the interview. And one is called snap judgment, and the other is called personal biases, okay? Or personal biases and characteristics. Now, what is this all about? The snap judgment has to do, or otherwise called first impression. This is an error that has been around for a very long time, and I don't think it is going anywhere. The interviewee does not have any control over how the interviewer may perceive them, but they can do what they can do within their remit to manage the situation. So when we speak about snap judgment or first impression, it means how the interviewer will view you. So on the day of the interview, sometimes within 30 seconds of seeing you, that's it. If you are not properly attired, if you don't look the part, even if you're an excellent applicant, you'd have really not given the opportunity to demonstrate your skills and your competencies. And the other one is personal biases and characteristics. And this one has to do with your physical ability, physical characteristics. So we're talking about how you look. And we're going to be talking a little bit about these two main errors that can affect the interview process and also the applicant as they go through the process. All right. So let us go right into the day of the interview. So on the day of the interview, it is expected that the applicant should be punctual. You should show up on time. Now, when I say you should be punctual, it doesn't mean that you should get to the place, especially now, this season of the year when it is very dark. I'm not telling you to get to the place at 4 a.m. and competing with the security guard to open the establishment. But it is expected that you'll get there anywhere between half an hour to an hour time. If you drive, it would be wise for you to sit in your car if you're there way ahead of time until around half an hour time or 3/4 hour time that you walk into the lobby area wherever you are told to meet. So sometimes the interviewer will give you a specific time. And the reason for this is because there are other applicants and they really do not want everyone to be congregating in the same space. So it is expected that you will respect that if you are given a specific time. But if you are not given a specific time, please be advised that you should not be there overly too early, as I would put it, 2 hours, 3 hours early, but you should be there on time. You should also dress appropriately, and we're going to be getting into dress code. I think maybe a previous presenter would have spoken about that, but I'm going to be speaking about it again. It is very important for you to greetings, how you greet when you show up on the day of the interview. Sometimes some business establishments, you'll notice that there's a security officer. In some places, will not necessarily see an employee, but it is the security officer who may be sitting in the information area at the information desk. And sometimes we make the mistake of bypassing the security because persons are of the view that they are not employees anyway. Miss, sir, how may I help you? I'm here for an interview. I really can't talk to you. I'm here to speak to the manager. Oh, no. So what happened is that the business establishment may be monitoring you from the very moment you walked onto the complex. These days, most of these establishments, they have their cameras and other systems. They are watching. When you get into the lobby area, people are there watching you when you're in the waiting room and all of that. All right? So be courteous, be kind to the receptionist, to the security officer, be polite, be respectful. Okay? And when it is time for a handshake is very important. If we had a live session, I would do an actual demonstration of the handshake. It's a little difficult for me to do it, but we will talk more about it in a little while. When you enter on the day, in some cases, some organization will ask you prior to the day of the interview to complete an application form. In other places, you may be asked to do it while you wait in the waiting area. Okay? And it is at this time other information about you is collected. All right?
I have to go back to finance now.
Antoinette, somebody's mic is open. Can you close your mic? Okay. Now, on the day of the interview, you should bear a number of things in mind. You should be punctual. You should be dressed appropriately. You should be very professional in terms of your greeting, your handshake. You should wait before you take a seat. I beg you, please do not show up at that place and take a seat if you were not told to sit. And be careful to manage your both verbal and non-verbal communication. Pay attention to your listening skills as well, okay? So we talk about the punctuality and we're going to be going into the dress code. Now, the other presenters, maybe last week or the week before, would have maybe gone into detail, but I'll touch on it a little bit. And it is tying into what I shared earlier about the interview error that could affect every single job applicant, snap judgment. The way you present yourself, even if you're an excellent person, could really cause the interviewer to make up their mind at the very beginning, even without asking the first question. So one of the ways to manage snap judgment or first impression is to manage that through your dress code. And it is advised that you should be conservative in your dress code. I will hasten to say that even if you're applying for a job at a place that the dress code is a bit casual, I can think of organizations like Flow. Their dress code is more on the casual side, and I would not advise anyone to dress like that, to show up for an interview, even at Flow. So do not take things for granted, even if the environment they appear to be easygoing and put on anything. It may work against you. So we're going to be looking quickly. We're not going to be spending a long time on it, given that you would have already covered this topic, but I'm going to be looking at it a little bit before we move on. So we're going to be looking at the females first. All right. Are you seeing this image, guys? Are you seeing it?
Yes, miss.
Okay. So we are showing an image of a female dressed in a jacket suit. I'm not sure if you're able to see from one on the left column, we are saying do's, and on the right one, don't. So the image on the right, we are saying if you're going for an interview, this person is dressed more on the casual side. And as I said before, even if the dress code of the organization is more casual, I do not advise you to show up for an interview in a casual attire, okay? So in terms of jewelry, be moderate in your and conservative in your jewelry. Even the length of the skirt, I know that, you know, some of you are very young and looking very nice, but I would advise you to manage the length of your skirt. All right. Then we talk about the stockings. If you're going to be wearing a stocking, and I advise you to, if you don't have any allergic reaction. The color of your stocking should be matching the color of your skirt, your skin, or your shoes. Do you get that, everyone? Not sure if you're hearing me. I hope you are. Are you hearing me, everyone?
Yes, miss.
Okay, wonderful. And you should stick to a dark colored shoes, okay? So please, do not pull out your red shoes for the interview. I beg you, please don't do that, okay? And there are other images. Of course, there are different types of hairstyle. We are Black people and we have our different choice of hairstyles, but let us be conservative in terms of the hair color, etc. So we just have a few images just to show you. And even the shoes, I'll speak a little bit about the shoes, ladies. These are some samples of what is considered appropriate. You know what you can manage. I advise you not to wear any shoes that is overly high, that you are not able to balance yourself, okay? It is advisable that you stick to closed shoes and not open toe or open back, all right? So these are just some samples. As I said, I will not spend a long time because you would have looked at dress code, but I just have to tie it into the presentation, okay? All right. So let's look at the gentlemen as well. We have some do's and don'ts as well, similar. So gentlemen, I know some of you are very trendy. I advise you, some of you may be wearing earring at this time. I'm advising you, if you're going for an interview, it could work against you because of the same snap judgment I'm talking about. You may be very good, very competent, but you do not know the persons who are sitting on the panel. And that may be one thing that may cause one of the panelists. Another person would say, well, it doesn't matter once the person is competent. Well, another said, oh no, this person, we don't want this person in our organization. All right. So the same principle would apply as a female. Pay attention to your socks. Please, gentlemen, please do not wear any white bobby socks under your shoes. Please, I beg you. All right. Your socks should be matching your pants, your skin, or your shoes, okay? Similar principle, all right? Just showing you some other samples, all right? It dependent on the organization and depending on the level of the position. Sometimes you may wear a jacket. In other cases, it may be okay for you to wear a shirt and tie. So you need to consider what the job is all about on the level of the job. There may be occasions, I'm not saying all the time you're required to wear a jacket, but based on the nature of the position, okay? All right. So we're just looking at some quick images, all right? So the shoes, I know that there are some fancy shoes out there with the tip of it in red and multiple colors and pointed toe and some mixed colors. Guys, let us put away those shoes for convention and parties. Okay, so a shoes looking like this one would be appropriate for the interview. Okay, dark colors, And when we talk about dark colors, we're talking about black, navy, blue, gray, along that line, okay? So I just quickly looked at the dress code and we are moving on. Now, the interviews may be administered one-on-one interview, meaning one interviewer with one interviewee. You may also have a panel interview or group interview. But one of the most popular one these days is the panel interviews. And the panel interviews, in this one, you will have several persons sitting on the panel from the organization. So you will have, for example, a member from the human resource department, maybe the HR manager, HR officer. You may have the supervisor for the division where you have applied. You may have another manager. Sometimes the interview panels could be 3, 5, or even more in some cases. But earlier when I asked a question about how do you feel about interviews, some persons are very intimidated when they sit across the table looking at several faces. It can be intimidating, okay? Now, let me just say a little bit more about that, the interviews. Sometimes, based on the organization, based on their structures, the organization may conduct a telephone interview, while another organization may do a one-on-one interview as a preliminary interview. Now, in the context of the pandemic, some organizations, they are conducting their interviews online, maybe using Zoom and other platforms, okay? So be aware that sometimes they may conduct preliminary interview to screen out, to invite only a select number of persons. So it varies from one organization to another, okay? Now, in terms of how interview types they are organized, the interviews may be structured in terms of the questions, structured or unstructured. So the behavioral interviews are typed interview questions. These are questions that ask you questions about what you did in the past in your former position, and the situational speaks to hypothetical questions. What would you do if? And the job-related questions, these are questions that are related to the job itself, okay? So the unstructured interview questions, really what it means, it is not following any particular structure. They could ask you any question. So if they are five candidates, they could ask each of the 5 persons 5 different questions. So that's what it's really talking about. And as I said before, it varies from organization to organization. While the structured interview questions, the questions are predetermined, they are written ahead of time, and the interviewers are anticipating a particular response. And in some cases, some organizations will even write down the answer they are expecting, and they may score these responses all the way down. So if you hit the question in the bullseye, you may get a 5 if 5 is the highest point. 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way down to 0, dependent on the scale that they are using. Okay? All right, and I would have said this already for persons who are taking note. What is the situational type interview questions, the behavioral, and the job related? Okay? All right. Are you with me, guys? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we're moving quickly along. So as I said, the situational type interview questions, these are the ones that will ask a candidate about what they would do if they are placed in a particular situation. The behavioral asks question for you to describe how you actually behaved or reacted to a situation in the past, while the job related speaks to information about your past work experience in the position, okay? So we're moving quickly along. So we have arrived at the interview now, and we are in the interview. So there are some tips, quick tips. Please ensure that you have a personal commercial statement. We're moving into that quickly. Be honest, be confident, be focused, avoid rambling. I know that it is very very popular for us to say and those habits. Sometimes we do them without even realizing that we are doing them. But let us try to avoid the rambling, and you can overcome this by practicing. So you should be always prepared to answer the questions as they appear. So we are going to be looking at some actual questions now, based on the samples that I had given you earlier. So we're looking at a behavioral type question. So remember that we said that the questions could be structured or unstructured. And under structured, we can have behavioral, situational, or job-based. So let's look at a behavioral type interview questions. Tell me about a time when you worked effectively under pressure. This is in the past tense, means that this is something that happened in the past in your previous job. Can somebody volunteer to answer this question? Tell me about a time when you worked effectively under pressure. Can anybody volunteer to answer that question? Everybody is silent. Or you need some time to think about it. Any volunteers?
Oh, well, I can give one example.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, it wasn't a high-paying job, but it was data entry and data entry, speed typing. So you have to pump in a lot of records, and you have to do it at minimal error.
Okay, so what I want you to do for me, Mr. Steven, is to answer as if you were actually in the interview. How would you respond to a question like this? You're sitting in the interview chair and you are looking across at the interview panelists, and this question is presented to you. Mr. Gentle, tell me about a time when you had to work effectively under pressure. How would you reply to that question?
Okay, well, I'd say, I remember some years ago, I was on a data entry job where we all had to key in a lot of records at a high rate. At the same time, we had to key with minimal error.
All right. What do you think about his response? Anyone? Do you think that would be an appropriate response? Anyone?
I guess it could be a little bit more detailed.
All right. Could you add a little more to it? What else could you add to that?
Oh, well, the records that were keying were like product registration data from the United States. So, it had a lot of address info. You had to put in zip code, the full address, apartment number, and so forth, and the state and the city as well.
All right. What I'm speaking to, Mr. Steven, is not necessarily the content per se. I just want you to structure your thoughts. You're sitting in the interview. How would you structure your thought if you're asked a question like this? So I'm not necessarily focusing on the exact word for word what you would say, but how would you organize? You're asked a question like this, and as I said before, a question like this is trying to figure out how did you handle a particular situation, a real situation in the past.
Well, then you would probably depend on who it is. I mean, or how you feel, if you want to say that much, I suppose. How I would do it, probably get into the whole ergonomics, because it was a room filled with everybody. It wasn't everybody at their separate desks. So everybody was monitoring everybody's action. So you had to keep up the pace. There were some persons who were going at a higher output. Some of us weren't that quick. So there was also that pressure of trying to match your colleagues' level of output. So even that added to the psychological pressure of that job.
Okay. Can I hear from, is that Connolly Jones? Your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. I would reckon that he would speak mostly to strategy. Like, how was it that he went about to carry out the task?
Right. Right. So what I'm saying to you, I'm not saying that organizations are not using unstructured interview type questions, but what we'll find is that when they use the structured one, it requires you to dig a little deeper to respond to these questions. These questions are more than what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and all of that, and you can sit and swat a response. But this is what I want you to get into. You may be asked about an actual situation in the past. How did you handle that situation? And so you should be prepared. So it could come in several formats, but you should be prepared to answer the questions and have a strategy. So you are correct, Miss Jones. You need to strategize. So what you're going to be doing, state what the situation was and what strategy did you use to manage the situation, okay? The hypothetical or the situational type interview questions, it tend to ask you questions about what would you do if the situation has not actually happened, but the interviewer wants to put you on the spot to see how you would respond. So let me ask another question. What would you do if you were asked at the end of the working day, and say the working day is 4 p.m., to remain until 10 p.m. or remain until later that evening to resolve an emergency? If your supervisor asks you that question, how would you respond? I'm asking another volunteer. How would you respond to a question like that? So your supervisor is asking you, it is 4 o'clock, it is at the time when you're packing to go, and your supervisor shows up to your office and to say, Miss Stevens or DaCosta or Mr. Hibbert, please, we're having an emergency. Can you remain to resolve a matter? What would you do? So you're asked a question, what would you do? You're sitting in front of the panel. What would you do if you're asked to remain after working hours to resolve a serious matter? How would you respond to a question like this? Volunteers? Ordain? Who is volunteering?
It would depend to me. If I definitely have somewhere to be, like it's really, really important, then I'd have to decline or tell the boss that I can't stay back. But if it's possible that I can, then I will, because it would even help with my reputation of some sort. So
okay, so you are saying that maybe you would say I can't stay back?
no, if it's a matter where there's somewhere that I definitely have to be, like if it's a very, very important
No, what I wanted to do, Mr. Ebert, is to reply to that question as if you were sitting in the interview and you're replying to the interviewer. What would you do if? So I want you to answer the question as if you were sitting in front of the panelists.
Well, I would tell the boss that I can stay, and I will do my best to help the company to resolve this issue.
Okay, anyone else?
Carlissa speaking.
Go ahead, Carlissa.
I would have said, I would have told the boss that if I can actually stay, I will say I am able to spend, I might not be able to spend 5 hours, but I'm willing to give 4.5 or 3 hours.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Carlissa. Anyone else?
Or I'd probably ask for just 1 hour to get something to eat, freshen up back myself. So I'm ready to work for a longer period that I was not expecting.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else? How would you respond to a question like this? You're sitting in the interview, and this is a situational type interview questions. And remember, I said to you that these questions are predetermined. They are not unstructured questions that they ask as they go along. They are pre-prepared. They want to know what kind of person you are. How would you handle a particular situation? So for the responses to these questions, it's not necessarily a right or a wrong, but it's the how. How did you approach the situation? This is what the interviewer really wants to get from you. Do we have any other volunteer who are willing to participate? Any other volunteer?
Miss, and a question, I suppose. Would it be appropriate if you made relation to a situation where you were probably in that position before?
I'm not sure I'm understanding. Give me a little more clarity on what you're saying.
For instance, it's situational. However, you've actually been in a job prior to that instance where you had to actually stay back an extra couple hours. So could you actually start off saying that that's something that you have done before and how you went about doing it?
I see where you're going. So you could state what is it that you would do, but you could basically share that this is something
Make
that you have done
reference
before.
that you
Yes.
do, yeah.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Anyone else? All right.
Miss, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Returning to this question. So suppose you cannot stay back, like I'm asking from like the view of you actually getting the job and you have like a child to pick up and you can't stay back. How would you approach that situation?
Can anybody share before I join? Can anybody give any advice to this question? What she's asking, what if you have a child to pick up maybe by 4:30 or 5? How would you deal with this situation?
You could say, thank you for
Sorry,
your
one at a time.
question.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your question, but with all due respect, I am not sure how this will work out since I have to pick up my child from school at 4:30 p.m.
All right. Do you agree that that would be an appropriate response, guys? Because what we need to understand, you know, listen, one moment there. Remember, it is not written anywhere, but you know that the employer has the handle and you have the blade. Think about a supervisor that is full of him or herself. And while it is important to pick up your child, sometimes they hear something that you didn't say. So let me hear what the others are saying about that response.
Miss, I don't think I would say, with all due respect, I would say unfortunately I'm unable to. And prior to saying that, I would try to see if anybody else could pick up the child before I come to a decision of just saying no.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone
Yes,
else want to
I
join?
would try to make other arrangements first.
All right, all right.
You have to seem as if you're making an effort.
Right, so that's what I'm saying is, if you said, with all due respect, boss, I have my child to pick up and I can't stay back. How do you think that the employer or the supervisor will take that?
That gives a little rude vibes.
Although what you're saying is the truth, it doesn't come across the right way. So maybe you could be honest to say that, Mrs. Brown or Mr. Brown, I am willing to stay back to resolve this important issue. Can you give me some time to make some arrangement with the picking up of my child? Or in some cases, some supervisor would even allow you to go for the child and bring the child to the workplace. I don't know. In some other cases, you may need to call on a family member to assist. So there are a number of approaches, but the approach to say, well, I'm sorry, I have to pick up my child. and all of that. Although that is important, and I'm not saying picking up your child or any other family member is not important, but it is how it is interpreted. And remember that the persons who are your supervisors and managers, they are human beings, and some of them are very vindictive, and it could be used against you. Simple. You could be a very good worker, and when it is time for appraisal, this very same issue is used against you. Any other comment before we move on?
Probably if it is something that you can ask somebody to do for you, that would be another option. So if you have somebody
Right.
can leave, will help to start the situation out, you can do that and then go and get your child. But
right. So
to say
another,
with all due respect doesn't make it respectful.
no. So what you can do, if you really, really, truly, you cannot stay back, what you could do, you could maybe speak with some of your other team members and ask them, listen, I was asked to stay back. I'm in a little situation. I have to pick up Johnny or Susie. Could you fill in for me? Whether you could ask a person to pick up the child or the person could take on the role. Maybe you could return to the supervisor and to say that I tried to get somebody to pick up Susie, but it's not working out. Is it okay? So you have to take that approach in finding a solution, because what the supervisor wants is a solution for an urgent matter. Remember, it's an urgent matter. Remember the person sitting across the interview table. They are not really looking at the specifics, but they are looking at how you would really approach a situation or any other similar situation. Now I'm going to be asking everybody the same question. Everybody has to participate in this one now. The job-based question. So everybody will be participating. Everyone who is online will have to answer this question. So, question. How has your qualification and experiences prepared you for this position? So we are starting with Alexandra Stevens, then Angelica Nemard. How has your experiences and qualification prepared you for this position? It's a question that you are being asked right now. You're sitting in front of the interviewer. How would you respond to a question like this? Angelica and Alexandra Stevens, Angelica, Antoine Chung. I need to hear from you guys.
Miss,
quickly, yes.
Could we get some more details for instance, where are we applying to?
Okay.
So we could make reference.
All right, so let me give you a little more context then. What if you are applying for a position at National Commercial Bank as a customer service representative, and you would have had, whether you had working experience prior to that or not, but you are asked. I don't think this matter where, but since you're asking for a context, I'll give it to you. But it doesn't really matter what is the job. You're asked a question, and the position you're applying for now, the interviewer is asking you, how has your past experiences and qualification prepared you for this position? How would you approach a question like this?
Well, for one, I would say, so for instance,
who is this, Keon Brown?
Yes.
Go ahead, Keon.
It's a customer service representative job, as you said, at a national commercial bank. Okay, so my experience has helped me my experience has helped us deem me qualified for this job because throughout my years of working, I've been doing customer service job where I've been trained in different customer service training workshops, as well as my education level where I'm doing a bachelor's degree in general management will actually help me to better understand persons as well as to impart that knowledge to understand and relate to customers on a whole. And that will help me in turn serving the customers in an appropriate and efficient manner, as well as understanding them and trying to get the meet the goals of the organization in a sense. In a
What do
nutshell,
you
then.
think about Miss Brown's response? Guys, what do you think about Kian Brown's response to this question?
I think it's not telling what exactly your experience have helped you to do or your qualifications. You're just saying you have this qualification and the experience, but you're not telling how it has prepared you for this new job or for this.
I mentioned, yes, it helped me to understand and to better understand customers, to know how to relate to them in a sense, to ensure that my work is done efficiently and effectively. I mentioned that also.
Okay, but I get what she's saying. You're not specific enough. You're not on point. You're saying things, but you're not really on point. What about Stephen, Alexandra Stevens? Angelica Nemard? Antoine Chung? What about the other participants? Deborah? Debrina? Denise Bolton? What about the other participants? Can you give a reply to that question? You're sitting in the interview and you're asked a question like that. How would you approach? What answer would you give for a question like that? How has your qualifications and experiences prepared you for this position? Maybe you would have been asked several other questions before, but now you're being asked this question. How would you reply to a question like this?
Miss?
Yes, Miss Bolton?
Well, I would say that my qualifications and experience have prepared me for this job because it has made me well-rounded, and it has made me well-rounded in the field of customer service.
Anything else? That's it? What do you think about Denise's response? Do you think that is an appropriate response? Do you think that she gave the response that the interviewers would be anticipating? What are your thoughts?
They would want more in-depth information.
They would want more information. So can somebody volunteer to share? How would you reply to a question like this?
Miss, I'll volunteer.
Go ahead, please, Roxanne.
Miss. I'd say that my qualifications from UTech prepared me for this job because it taught me the theoretical, and sometimes, in a sense, the practical aspects of what I would need to do this job. And then my experience at X Place gave me a more practical and hands-on experience. So I've had to basically display customer service on my job, and so I know what to do if I'm in certain situations.
Okay, so that was Roseanne. I think Roseanne, that was a good attempt, Roseanne. Any other feedback about Roseanne's response, or anyone would like to participate? How would you really?
Miss?
Yeah, sure. How would you haste this question? Go right ahead.
Okay. Working with the customer service representative, I would probably state at first that I am a marketing student. I'm a final year marketing student at the university, and as such, I was required.
Hello. Which university?
At UTech.
Oh.
Okay, let me be exact how I would actually say. As a marketing student at the University of Technology, we're all required.
One moment, Ms. DaCosta. Maybe I've never taught you before. If you say the University of Technology and you don't put Jamaica on it,
Jamaica.
It's not our institution. Okay, continue, please.
Okay, so after saying what university I attend, I would then say it is required that all students studying the Bachelor's of Business Admin mod course is expected to sit marketing seminar in their final year of the university. And with this provides you with practical skills in planning events, executing the events, working with a number of persons and committees. And with this have taught me how to interact with persons, and not just interact, but learn how to deal with them. Could probably add in that you have done some events, and because of these events, it has taught you how to exceed what customers expectation and all of that. So I would probably go something down that route, or probably mention some of the courses that I have done, something like that. I would say something along that line.
Okay. Is there anyone agreeing with Carlissa Da Costa? She's the one that just shared. How do you think Carlissa, how would you rate Carlissa's performance with that question? Anyone? What are your thoughts?
Miss, I would say that she did a pretty good job in the sense that she has made reference to what her qualifications were in details. She was vague with the skills that she had acquired, but she made some mention of it. So I think she did a pretty decent job.
All right. Anybody else? Anyone else who would like to try before we move on?
Yes, I would like to try.
All right, one moment. So we have, is it Shabidia and Denisha? Okay, so Shabidia and then Denisha.
Miss, I was just going to go ahead and but okay.
Sorry. That was Jones?
Yes,
no,
miss.
it was
Okay, one moment. So Jones, Shabidia, then Denisha.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I am formally trained as a forensic chemistry student. However, through years of work experience or months of work experience in the field of customer service, I have garnered skills in relation to communication, soft skills, for instance, empathy, how to relate and take into consideration persons' opinions and their values and what it is that they require of me to do. So from training in customer service, I have come to an understanding of what people would want of me. And in garnering these practical skills, I'm able to actually offer the persons more of a human experience, being that I won't just come about as a robot or somebody that is taught and programmed how to operate, but somebody who can actually relate to them and give them an experience that is meaningful and what is it that they actually require.
All right. What are your thoughts on Miss Jones? So Miss Jones, so let me allow Miss Shabidia and Denisha, and then I make my comment and I move on. As time is really slipping away. Go ahead, please. Shabidia?
Miss, it's okay. You can just move on.
No, man, I want to hear yours.
I was going to say that, all right, let me start. I have 1 year plus experience in customer service. I have good team building and I have good team building and sorry. Sorry about that. Let me start again. I have 1+ year customer service experience. I have good team building relationship skills. I have good interpersonal skills. And studying entrepreneurship at the University of Technology. With all these experience, it will allow me to communicate well with customers and clients and build a relationship with them in terms of building trust and loyalty among them. But with this degree, with this qualification and experience, it will allows me to bring value to the organization in terms of how you relate to the customer, how you communicate and build a relationship with them, building loyalty and trust among your customer. Yeah.
Okay, let me hear Danisha quickly. Danisha Chambers. Danisha?
Okay. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
So I'd start by saying I have just recently I have recently completed a bachelor's degree in administration at the University of Technology Jamaica, where I've done various courses such as professionalism in organization, among others. I am also a certified guest service professional. These qualifications has allowed me to be advanced in dealing with customers on a professional level. Also, I was once a summer intern at said organization where I've had hands-on experience in dealing with customers, and I'm well aware of procedures in place to carry out my role.
Okay, so that's Danisha Chambers, Kona Lee, and Shabidia, and before that we had, I think it was Carlisa da Costa. So I think the response given by each person, I realized, you know, there's a momentum. Persons built on what others have said. I think Miss Chambers' response was very good. Okay, so in answering a question like this, you're asked it's a twofold question. So in terms of the qualifications, I heard her mentioning I didn't get the impression that she has completed her degree, but she was able to really practically speak about some of the modules like professionalism in the organization, what she learned in modules like those. She spoke about her experience working as a customer service rep in company XYZ. And so what you're expected to do in a question like this is to pull on the information. So even if you have never really worked at an organization, you would have had experience while at the university. Somebody mentioned earlier about the seminar, their marketing or the student seminar. Well, we have a mixed multitude. We have School of Business students and other students from other faculty and colleges. And I know in the School of Business Administration, for example, there is all the students are required to complete their annual seminar, and in this training over a year or so, they are really trained in a number of areas. And I'm sure other faculties and colleges, they have their own programs as well. So if you have never worked a day in your life in a corporate organization, there are several ways you would have been exposed, even in your internship, a number of things. So I don't want anybody to say, well, I can't answer that question because I don't have any experience and I didn't get my degree, so I couldn't answer the question. Oh no. So that, especially the last person who replied to the question, I think you did a good job. Other persons approach the questions well, but there were some missing elements. Okay, so let us move along quickly, guys. Time is slipping away, but thanks for all the participants with the responses so far. I think you have done well in general. Now, there's another question I'm going to be asking. And in most interview, you are asked this question. You may be asked this, usually you may be asked this question in the early part of the interview. And it's a question that it may be simple, but person could mess up this question very, very easily. And the question is, tell me about yourself. So I'm going to be asking someone, especially those who have not yet participated, could you quickly, because I wanted this session to be a little practical as much as possible, to ask you a few questions like you were in an actual interview, for you to get the experience on how you would really respond to some of these questions. So quickly, we are going to be wrapping up shortly, but I just want to get from you, how would you reply to a question like this? Tell me about yourself. Quickly, guys. Volunteers, tell me about yourself. That you are sitting in front of the interviewer. You may be asked this as one of the early questions, and in a trained interviewer would normally try to get the interviewee to be at ease. One of the questions you could be asked is, how did you learn about our organization? Or how did you learn about this job opening? Or another possible question is, tell me about yourself. And if this question doesn't come at the beginning, it may come somewhere along the line throughout the interview. Can somebody volunteer to reply to this question? This question is about you, solely about you. Tell me about yourself. What would you say if you're asked a question like this? Quickly, let me get some volunteers. Let me see who we have here. Guys, where are the participants? Jodian Hilton, Julian Brown, Dixon, Keon Brown, Moisha, Oden Ibert. Where are the participants? I'd like to hear from you quickly. Want to? Oden?
I'm not exactly sure how to approach it because maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I wouldn't want to share too little or too much information. So
okay, let me hear from Shabidia Robinson. How would you reply to a question like this? And I'm saying to you that this is a very, very critical question in any interview. Go ahead, Shabidia. Your hand was up.
All right, let me start. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I am hearing you.
Okay, right. I'll start by saying, my name is Shadeba Robinson. I live in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. I'm currently a final year student at the University of Technology, Jamaica, doing a Bachelor of Degree in Science, doing my Bachelor of Science degree in Entrepreneurship, Ethics, and Leadership. I have 1+ years experience in customer service, and from time to time, I do voluntary services with Early Childhood Center. I am a Sunday school teacher and a mentor for girls ages 6 to 12 years at the Kingdom Builders Open Bible Church, and I enjoy playing sports.
All right, so that was Shabidia. What are your thoughts concerning Shabidia's response? Anyone?
Even if you're good. Miss, I think she was good, she told us the section, but where she lived, that I don't think that was necessary.
All right, so that was Keon Brown. Go ahead, Jade. Jade, is it Jade?
I was saying that I think she was able to tell us what her degree was.
Able to tell us? Go again.
She was able to tell us what her degree was and how she was knowledgeable in customer service, which is a great asset to have. And she also told us that she does participate in community service activities, which is things that persons are looking to hear to see if you're active. So I think she answered it okay.
Anyone else? Anybody is in agreement with that? What are your thoughts concerning Miss Robinson's response to that question?
Miss,
Anyone
I think
else?
it was okay. I think it was okay, but I'm not sure that is what interviewers are looking to hear. I'm not sure how to go about this question.
Or anybody else? Has anyone ever been on an interview and you're asked this question and you're not sure what to say?
Let me try again, Miss. Let me try.
Okay.
I'm gonna try. First, I must say that I'm a determined person. I'm very hardworking, and whatever task that is set before me, I ensure to do this task to the best of my ability. If there's something that I don't know, I'll try my best to find out, ask questions, to see if I can get a better understanding or seek help in to ensure that the task is completed in a timely manner and an efficient manner. I also am a people person, a team player, right? Because without working as a team, if you're working with people, you have to work as a team. So just doing everything on by yourself is not so much good enough for a company or an organization. So working as a team help us to build a harmonious environment so that we can learn from each other and help to meet the strategic goals of the organization, so that
so that the company can strive. In a sense, I'm just off the top of my head, just
Okay.
that's it.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Remember that it's about you, you know. You know yourself the most or the best. So who is
So
that?
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Keon.
So I answered that was so that to tell how my personality, how I believe that I'm a team player, a determined person can actually help reach the goal of meet the goal of the organization. So that is about me in a sense.
All right, let me hear Cornely Jones. Cornely Jones, you wanted to say something? Go ahead, please.
Miss, I was just asking, if a question of that nature wouldn't be more leaning towards like your passions, things outside of so much of a structured realm. Like for instance, I was told once that if you are into, for instance, singing or whatever, like persons could find ways to actually use that talent or that skill into in the organization. So I was wondering if it's something along that line that you would really approach the question with.
What
yes,
do you
Miss.
think?
Could you tell us, Miss?
Yes.
Could you tell us how you would like or what you are expecting us to sing?
Sure, I'm getting at that. I just wanted a few of you to attempt the question. I believe some of you may have. Let me ask. Have you ever been asked a question like this in an interview before? Anyone?
Yes, Miss. Yes,
And
Miss. I
Yeah,
don't think
long
this
ago.
is
all right,
such a
one moment. I
difficult
think,
question.
sorry, I think Odane, sorry, let me allow Odane to speak.
No, I was saying no, I've never been asked that before.
You have never been asked before. All right,
No.
I think I heard somebody said yes.
But I don't know. I don't feel like it's supposed to be something that you're trying to win over the interviewer further. I think it should just be genuinely about yourself, not necessarily like, oh, it will help the company this way. Just like, I feel like it's more of a casual question than anything else.
It's a casual question. Anybody agree with him?
That's just how
Yes, Miss. Like it's not so structured about okay. I mean, they want to hear that you can probably assist with this, but it's not mainly on oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do ABC.
All
It's
right.
just about you. You sure?
Okay. So I still have not heard from some person, but let me move on in the interest of time quickly. Now, this question, as I said, it appears to be very simple, and you could make a very serious mistake with this question. Very, very serious mistake with this question because it appears so simple. Tell me about yourself. And so I'm going to be giving you some tips how to reply to a question like this. So this question is not asking you information really that is mainly personal. It's a really asking you a question about your professional self. So you would not answer a question to say, listen, I am the fifth of 11 children from St. Catherine. My father has goats. He's a farmer. He has chicken and all of this story. I went to such primary school and all of this information. This is not what this question is all about. It's all about you, but you need to structure your response. So I heard somebody saying that you don't really need a structure. Not true. And that is why this question, as simple as it is, persons really get messed up with this question. So listen, I want you to take some strategies for this question. So the strategy for approaching a question like this is to start with your current. I noticed some persons were on the right path with this question, but you did not cover all the areas. So you start, the strategy for answering the question is starting with your current position. So I heard somebody sharing that I am currently a fourth-year student in completing the Bachelor of Business Administration degree, where I specialize in marketing, etc. You are also the marketing officer at company XYZ. So you start with your current status, where you are right now. You're going to divulge information about your professional context in terms of where you are right now, in terms of your qualifications and your experience. What is it you're doing now? Then you move to speak about your past. Prior to this position, I was the marketing officer or the customer service officer at company XYZ, where I was responsible for the XYZ division. I supervised 2 employees. I was required to do XYZ. Then you move on to the future. What are you aspiring to do? Where do you see yourself? So it is really a selling point. What this question is really to market yourself. Tell me about yourself. Now, the emphasis is not to tell everything that is already on the resume. Of course, you're going to be mentioning some of them. Maybe the interviewer wants to see if you are consistent with what they have on record for you. But it is really, this question is a question for you to market yourself. What is it that you have to offer? That's really what this question is asking you to do. So you start with your current status, your past, and your future. All right? Can anybody try one more time before we move on, before we wrap up? Considering the context I have just given, even some of those who have participated before. Just to restructure your thoughts.
Hello? Are you hearing me?
Yes. Go ahead, Brittany.
Okay, my name is Brittany Jade Lewis. I am currently pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Hotel and Resort Management. As well as I am a tourism ambassador. I am a member of the Tourism Action Club. Prior to, wait, you said past. Wait, no, it's past, right? Wait, no, it's past.
Future.
All right. What's in my past? I am a past student of the Westwood High School. I was a secretary in the environmental club as well. And I aspire to become a human resource manager.
Okay, that's not bad. So guys, are you seeing the structure that she has put to our thoughts? Is anybody seeing what we are saying right here with this question? And when you're answering this question, try to avoid anything that is unnecessary. You don't have to go back too far to your high school. It may be relevant. So if the information that you're talking about the high school is not really relevant right now, don't bother to push the button. Okay? All right. Let us move quickly because we are really winding down now. So I really exposed you to some questions, and the questions I gave you, for the most part, person would have seen these questions as tough questions, but it's just the strategies. How do you approach question of this kind? And this question about tell me about yourself, if you are not asked this question at the beginning of the interview, when the interviewer is closing the interview and said to you, Miss DaCosta, do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to say? Anything? If you are asked such a question, this is the opportunity for you to reframe this question and tell the interviewer about yourself. So you're going to be talking about yourself in another way. You're going to be sharing about what you are currently doing, what you did in the past, and what value do you think you will bring to the organization. So pretty much that is what this is all about. So in closing, we spoke about the interview. We talk about being prepared. You need to learn more about the organization. Learn more about the organization. We spoke about you need to think ahead with respect to the questions. You need to be confident when you show up for an interview. You can't be at an interview and you're holding down your head, playing with your buttons, all of these things. So we spoke about earlier about the first impression. You do not have a second opportunity to make a first impression. So the first impression issue that we spoke about earlier, it has to do with how you just approach yourself. How do you walk in the room? Do you walk in with confidence? Do you walk with your head down? All of these are important. Okay, how are you dressed? Are you dressed conservatively? Are you appropriately dressed? Is your skirt too short? Are the colors too bright and loud? And of course, I would say to you that it is better to be conservative than to overdo with the dressing, okay? And ladies, in terms of makeup and all of that, it's wise to be conservative. Yes, you can wear makeup, but be conservative in your approach, okay? We talk about that, being dressing conservative. And also, be prepared. So for the question, try to avoid asking the interviewer to repeat every minute. Repeat, listen. And one important element of communication is your listening skills. So we have really gone through what happens at the interview, all right? And remember, please be prepared to extend your hand, to shake, to use your hand to do the handshake. Your hand, I don't know if I can demonstrate it. All right, the web of your hand, please ensure that your handshake is firm, not flimsy. So the person's hand should, this in the web, you should ensure that it is firm and it's not a flimsy handshake, because it could be interpreted that you are not confident, among other things, okay? We spoke about not taking a seat at the interview before you're asked to sit down and all of that. Jody and Hilton, I see your hand up. Can you go ahead quickly with your question?
I was saying, what if you have sweaty hands? Could you just say that you rather not to shake their hand?
What I would advise you to do is you could maybe walk with maybe your handkerchief or something. Try to try, if you are preparing to shake hand, ensure that you have something to wipe your hand before you do it, because it could be interpreted in a negative way if you are not willing to extend your hand for a handshake. So make sure, whether it is in your pocket or you have it there, quickly, discreetly wipe your hands before you do the handshake. So I would not turn down a handshake. All right? Any other question? Now, another thing is that you should be always prepared to ask a question. So if the interviewer said, are there any questions? Never you said no. Never says no. You should prepare at least 3 questions. You may not necessarily ask the 3, but I'm advising you to prepare at least 3 questions to ask the interviewer. Can anybody think about an appropriate question that you would want to ask the interviewer? And these questions should really not be about money. The opportunity to speak about money will come up, so do not ask, so how much is the salary? So that is a no-no. Can anybody think about a question, an appropriate question that you could ask the interviewer? Go ahead,
Miss,
Ibrahim.
ask them. Miss, you could
Yes, go
ask
ahead,
them
Walter.
what is the job description.
What is the job description?
Yes, and your duties and all of that.
Do you think that's an appropriate question, anyone? What do you think about
No,
that?
miss, because normally you would know the job
Hold on,
description
one at
prior
a
to the
time. So many of us. So some persons, they are saying no to that, my friend, that question would appear as if you are not prepared. Is that's why you said no, guys?
Yes, miss, because that's something you would already know before going to the job. They normally state the job description.
Okay. All right. Can somebody suggest an appropriate question you could ask? A question you could ask the interviewer?
Yes. Means
Yes.
something like why the
when would I expect to
Sorry,
start?
sorry. One at a time, please. Who is speaking now? Okay, and Brown, go ahead.
If I was successful in this interview, when would I expect to start?
Okay, that's a good question. So she's asking about the start time. Should I be successful? When would I be expected to start? So that's a good question. Can anybody suggest another one, please?
Miss, I usually ask if uniforms are provided or what is the dress code like, on a Friday or something along that line.
Okay, so
Don't know
question
the
about the dress
organization
code.
say.
Okay, any other question?
Miss, could you ask
Miss,
something like why is the position open? Like if the former or previous employee did they lack something that you were looking for or somewhere maybe you could step up?
I wouldn't put it that way. I wouldn't ask if the person lack anything. You could ask the question, how did this position became vacant? So the possible response of the employer could be the person retired, the person resigned, etc. But don't ask, what is it this person is lacking in? No, don't go there. I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay.
All right.
Miss, can you ask them what is it that they're expected? Something like what they expect of you, something around that area, Miss?
Like, Miss, could we
wouldn't
ask
put it.
who is their ideal candidate?
Pardon?
I'm adding to what the person before was asking. So I'm asking if it is appropriate to ask who or what qualities do they believe the ideal candidate should have, even though the job description would have gave you some of that, but is that a appropriate question to ask?
You could phrase it in a way to ask, really. I think what you really want to ask, what are their expectations? Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, Miss.
In terms of the ideal candidate, what are the characteristics? Is that what you're asking?
I'm not sure, Miss. Not sure.
Could you ask what do they expect of
Basically,
you
that's
when
what
going
I
into
was
the
asking.
position?
Okay. All right. Let me hear the last question, please.
Yes, Miss. You could ask, are there any promotional opportunities?
I wouldn't ask it that way. I would ask the question in the way in terms of career advancement. So don't ask straight, is there opportunity for it to get promotion? Although in principle you would say nothing is wrong with that, but don't look about promotion, just speak broadly. I would more speak about career advancement. What are the prospects for career advancement within this organization? Okay.
Miss, one more question, Miss. If it's not stated previously, can you ask them how soon will they get in touch with you or something of the sort?
Yes, that would be appropriate to say, and of course, guys, remember after the interview, always thank them for the opportunity. Always thank the interviewers for the opportunity to share with them, to discuss the prospect for this job opportunity. And then you could move on to ask a question like that. So how quickly will I hear from you? If it is not said, as somebody mentioned before, that would be appropriate. Because remember that you are not desperate. You could have applied to several organizations. And so you want to know, you have to be selective. Because remember, although you're looking for a job, you have something to offer. The investment that you'd have made for all your years at UTech, 4 years, 5 years, you would have been a better person from the day that you entered the organization. You would have built capacity, competencies, and so you have something to offer. All right. I want to add quickly, and I believe the person who did the resume would have mentioned it, that outside of your degree, try to have other skills. I would have said it in my class. Ensuring that you have a driver's license, even if you don't have a car. You learn events management, project management. I don't remember if that is a required course right now, but there are some things, some skills that it's important for you to have outside, that you are presenting yourself. Remember that you're competing for a job with your fellow classmates or persons within the university, other universities. And so it's not only to have your first degree, you need to think about other skills. Try to buy into the opportunity to participate in clubs and societies so that you can learn more and to develop new skills and competencies, okay? Now, I haven't heard some of the questions I was anticipating, but questions about the organization where do they see the organization in the next 5 years in terms of the what are some of the plans in the near future for the organization? Are they on the growth path? What are they doing? And then they will tell you, well, we are planning to establish another branch in Montego Bay. We are planning to do X, Y, Z, D. Another thing I'd want to mention to you is that please ensure that your questions make sense. Never you show up at an interview and when you're asked, I don't have any question. Never. Never you do that. Try to prepare at least. Sometimes it may not be necessary to mention all the questions, but at least you must be able to pull on at least one of them. Prepare 3 to 5 questions. May not have the need to ask all of them, but be prepared. It says something about you. Okay? Are there any other questions?
Miss, could you ask, like, what are some of the challenges that the organization faces? Could you ask that question?
Well, yes, you could ask that, but maybe I would word it in another way. Not just to ask what challenges they have and leave it right there, but I would want to frame it to say, particular for the job that you're applying for, what should I be considered for this position? What are the immediate needs or issues that you would like me to address? I know it's a different question, but I wouldn't want to ask straight up, what are some of the challenges you have here? So you want to see where you want to offer, how you're positioning yourself. And then the person, the interviewer could really share some things, some eye-opening information that we are having some challenges in our customer service department at this time, and we would like to improve our customer service, our after sales need to be improved, among other things. So question of these kinds need to be coined a certain way. So you don't want to really, I don't think the organization would want to expose their weaknesses. Remember that you are also selective. You are not desperate. So you don't show up at the interview and say, listen, I have my student loan to pay and I'm begging you, please, 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 you have to pick me. No, no, no. You are not desperate. You're offering value, and the organization is also looking for value. They're looking for the best fit for their organization. All right. So guys, we have really come to the end of the presentation. We have been asking questions as we go along. And also, I just want to remind you in closing that at an interview, you do not have the opportunity to make a second impression. The first impression is very important. We spoke about dress code. We talk about mannerism. And in respect of the personal characteristic, which I spoke of as an error, interview error, that we call it in introduction to HR modules like those. It's happening that sometimes if you are looking a certain way in terms of your personal characteristic, what if you are dark-skinned and the interviewer has a bias, or you are short, or you are fluffy? I want to share with you that although you may be competent in your area, please be confident. There are some persons, it doesn't matter what you do, they will make a decision that I do not like her. She is too slim, she is too fat, among other things. All right, this doesn't have anything to do with you, but I'm just saying to you, you should exude confidence when you show up at the interview. Be very confident. And one of the ways to be confident is to ensure that you are knowledgeable about the position, knowledgeable about the workplace. We spoke about in the earlier part of the presentation about researching the organization, finding about their mission, their vision. What is this organization all about? Look at their board structure. They're managing how many persons in their board. What are the names? You should be able to know all of this information. Be prepared. You can sit and think about some serious questions like the ones I've asked you. Tell me about yourself. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, and remember the formula for that one? Current, past, future. That is the way you will frame your response. Okay? So thank you. Are there any other questions, guys?
Miss?
Yes?
It's not really related to the session, but I was wondering if you have an alternate email to the UTech one, because I've been trying to contact you for a while now.
Okay. Are you one of my students?
Yes, Miss, you taught me community service. So that's what
No,
I
I know.
wanted
I
to
know. If
talk
you
to you
are you a
about.
current student right now?
Yes. No, it was a couple years ago, but.
But you want to contact me now?
Yes, Miss.
The UTech email is working. You can contact me on it.
Okay, Miss.
All right. It was down. Something was wrong a few weeks ago, but it is working right now.
Miss, I have
All
a
right.
question.
Any other question, guys?
Question. Suppose you're scheduled for 2 interviews at the same time. How would you handle that?
At the same time?
Yeah.
Well, what you could do, you could kindly, it's based on your discretion to really gently share with the individual that if you could make an arrangement in terms of changing the time, because if you have 2 at one time, what can you do about that? You don't necessarily going to say I have another interview, so I can't come. All right. You could just share that, you know, you're grateful for the opportunity, but that time is not so convenient. Could you reschedule? Nicely ask that question whether you were sent an email or you were contacted via telephone. Okay. Anyone else? Any other question?
Yes, Miss. A technical question about the handshake.
Yes.
Recall some person saying at the end of the interview, the handshake. Do you reach first, or you allow the interviewer to reach first?
Well, there are more than one school of thought with this, okay? But I believe that you can position yourself for a handshake, or if they reach first, you go. But I don't think you should just walk away like that. You could extend your hand for an handshake.
Okay.
And remember that while you're doing that, you should also maintain eye contact. Remember eye contact throughout the interview, guys. Very, very important. Very, very important. Try to avoid that flimsy. Remember I talk about the firm handshake. Don't hold on too long, and do not hold on too flimsy. Firm and then let go. And if you have wet palms, as somebody said earlier, please ensure you have something to really wipe your hand. Please do not say I can't shake any hands because my hand is wet, or don't bother with that. Okay. Any other question?
Miss, given it's COVID now, what if someone gets an interview during this time? Would you
Well, what
advise
I would,
shaking?
okay. I personally, this is my views. I believe that what the information I shared was very general. I was even thinking about COVID, but now that you have raised that question, I believe that the protocols right across the board, considering we're talking about physical distancing and all of that, you notice that persons are, we have to be doing some things differently. And I don't believe an interview at this point would hold it against any prospective employee with respect to handshake. I don't think so. So I believe that some protocol would have been established, how the interview will be conducted. Maybe when you enter the room, you have to sanitize, among other things. So this is really, really a new season we are in, and we have to really re-socialize everyone to deal with this time. But I would not, I believe that a wise organization would really establish how the interview will be conducted. As a matter of fact, I believe most organizations now, most of them are trying to avoid the face-to-face. It is only done in the final analysis. All right. In most cases, persons are using technology like these platforms for their interviews, and it's quite effective. You can see the person, you can see their body language, among other things. Okay. Any other questions? Any other question before we go? Okay. So I thank you very much for your time. I think this was a very informative session. and we were able to look at the interview, acing the interview. We looked at a number of questions. We looked at a number of approaches with the questions as well. And as we prepare, I'm not sure if you're all final year students or where you're at, but it's important for you to be knowledgeable. You need to know how to approach these questions, how to conduct yourself generally in an interview, because the interview is one of the most widely selection technique that is used, even if the others are not used. And remember that other organizations may use other selection technique, but the interview is usually used at the end of the day, in combination with other selection techniques like testing, among other things. So I thank you for your time, and I hope that as you prepare for your jobs, that you are prepared for your interviews. So I thank you again for your time and your consideration. Thank Mr. Francis as well and Mr. Cahoon for the opportunity to share. I'm not sure if Mr. Francis is still around. I'm not sure. Are you there, Mr. Francis? Mr. Francis, are you still there? Okay, guys, so are there any questions until Mr. Francis rejoin the session? Are there any other questions regarding, do we have any final year students? Do we have persons who are already working, persons who are preparing for an interview? And I think by now you would be aware of the career fair that is coming up, the job fair that is coming up in March. Are we all aware of that?
Yes, miss.
Yes, all right. It will be done online, and the whole context of COVID, as somebody raised earlier, things are being done differently. So most of the face-to-face interviews, most of the organization, they are not doing that anymore at this time. They are using the technology, whatever platforms that are available, they are using them for the interviews, okay? Now, as you prepare, I just want to add quickly, guys. I don't have any close by, but let me just show you one. I think this one is like when you're going to the interview, guys, I'm asking you kindly, ladies, please do not walk with any big bag and you know, gentlemen with any knapsack and that kind of a thing. Please avoid that. You can walk with a portfolio, maybe larger than this one, like a leather bounded, with your documents. Please ensure that you walk with copies of your resume. Even though you would have submitted it before, please ensure that you have several copies. In the event you're asked, you have them ready. Additionally, when you're submitting your resume, if you are not asked to submit your references at that time, don't do it. But what you should do, you should have your references in your portfolio when you're attending the interview, that if you are asked for them, you are ready. Your qualifications, your certified copies of your degrees and other certifications, please ensure that you walk with them. So do not walk with any type sheet in your hand, your resume in your hand like that. Please ensure that you have a very nice, neat portfolio. The cell phone, guys, please, the cell phone is a no-no in the interview. I would not advise you even to walk with your cell phone at all. So these are some tips for you as you prepare for your interviews. There are so many things we could say today, but I think I tried to cover the main points as you prepare for the world of work. Okay? Are there any other questions, guys? Are there any other questions? I think Mr. Francis is back with us. I was calling him. Mr. Francis, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm here.
I was wrapping up. I was just taking some more questions until you rejoin. So we were just taking some more questions. I really want to thank you for the time. Students, thank you, Mr. Francis and Mr. Cahoon, for the opportunity to share once more in your employment session. And the session was very, very informative. There were so many questions, so much interaction. And I just want to thank everyone for participating.